Will a ketone drink a day keep the mild cognitive impairment away? If you haven't watched before, my name is Dr. Nicole Diddick. I'm an internist and geriatrician, so I'm a doctor who looks after older adults. Here on The Wrinkle, I give you advice that you can use to age well or to look after someone who's aging. Today we're going to talk about mild cognitive impairment. I was really interested when a friend of mine sent me an article about a ketone beverage that seems to improve thinking. So what is mild cognitive impairment? Well, let's talk about the spectrum of changes with the aging brain. The typical situation is that there are some normal changes with aging. Most of these are in short-term memory or working memory. At the other end of the spectrum is dementia. Now remember, dementia is kind of an umbrella term. So there are many different types of dementia or causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is one of them. It's the most common cause of dementia in Canada. So in MCI, there's a perceived change in cognition. There is difficulty on some objective measure like a neurocognitive test, but day-to-day function is intact. That's MCI. Now, why would we give a ketone drink in the first place? Well, the human brain can use two types of fuel. It can use glucose or ketones. Glucose is almost always available, but in starvation mode, ketones are available, and that's what the brain would use. The brain actually prefers to use ketones when they are available compared to glucose. So it's much easier for it to be taken up into the brain, and it might even be easier in some disease states rather than glucose uptake, because in some disease states like Alzheimer's, the glucose uptake could be impaired. So ketones might be a good way to get fuel to the brain, and that might improve brain performance. That's the theory in very simple terms. The use of ketones to modify cognitive function has been studied before. So people have looked at a ketogenic diet, and that does seem to improve some components of brain function. In this study, they looked at taking a keto beverage twice a day. This study was done by some researchers in Canada at the University of Sherbrooke in Quebec. They gave some healthy participants a ketone drink twice a day. So this was made up of a ketogenic medium chain fatty acid or triglyceride. And it was taken in drink form 2 times a day, 15 grams twice a day. The participants drank either this or a placebo for 6 months. And then they were tested again in terms of their neuropsychological function. They underwent what's called a neuropsychological battery. They took a bunch of memory tests, so things that included recall, language, abstraction, and many other domains of cognition. The researchers did find that there was improvement in free recall, so that would be a test of short-term memory, also in verbal fluency, which is a test of language, and in trail making, which looks at executive function. So that's pretty exciting that there was improvement in some of those cognitive tests. So does that mean that I'm going to start recommending that beverage to my patients with MCI? Well, when I look at a scientific study, first of all, I want to see if there's anything in the results that could bias them. I noticed in this study that one of the researchers does receive grants from Nestle, which is the company that makes this ketogenic drink. Now, this was clearly disclosed in the publication. But that could introduce some potential bias, so that's why researchers are asked to disclose those kinds of relationships. This study was in part sponsored by Nestle and also by the Alzheimer's Association. Now, I also, when I read a study, want to know if the patients in the study are similar to those that I treat. The participants in this study were very healthy by my standards and by most people's standards. They were young. So the placebo group was average age 73 and the ketogenic drink group was average age 71 or mean age 71. So that's pretty young. And they did meet criteria for mild cognitive impairment, but they were pretty cognitively intact. So their scores on the MoCA had a mean score of 24, which is just below the cutoff of 26 out of 30. They were also fairly well educated, with education between 12 and 13 years. In the study, they did exclude people with type 2 diabetes or depression. So those are common conditions that I see in many of the older adults that I treat. So the patients in this study would resemble a portion of my practice, but probably a smaller portion. Now, looking at the results, it is encouraging that there was improvement in some of those cognitive test scores. But that's what I would call a surrogate outcome. I also don't know if improvement on those test scores would translate into sustained improvement in function or maintenance of function in day-to-day life. I don't really care if somebody can remember 3 more words in 5 minutes if they still can't balance their checkbook. So cognitive testing is important to measure, but it's not always the most meaningful thing that we're looking for in a therapy. I think these results are exciting, but I don't know if I have enough information to recommend taking this product to my patients. I need to learn more about it, and I'll be really interested to see if these studies are carried on for a longer period of time, maybe in people who have more cognitive symptoms, and maybe following other outcomes that are relevant and important in people's lives. I'm so thankful that you watched today, and I hope that you'll go visit my website. It's thewrinkle.ca. You can also join me on Facebook and Twitter, and here on YouTube, I've got loads of videos that I think you'll enjoy. Quite a few of them have to do with healthy aging and the aging brain. I'd love if you leave a comment below. Let me know what else you'd like to see me do, and if you have any experience with MCI, I would love it if you could share. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.